That space of consciousness
ese espacio de conciencia
is where we need to live.
es donde necesitamos vivir,
Consciousness in action,
siendo conciencia en acción,
in the present
en el
moment.
momento presente.
Why?
¿Por qué?
Because we can see reality.
Porque ahí podemos ver la realidad,
We can communicate.
podemos comunicarnos,
We can see the beauty of
podemos
creation,
ver la belleza de la creación,
the intrinsities of
lo
creation,
intrincado de la creación,
every aspect.
cada aspecto,
And we can see it clearly.
y lo podemos ver con claridad.
When we're consciousness in
Cuando
action,
somos conciencia en acción,
we're present in the
estamos
moment,
presentes en el momento
and we see the depth of
y
everything
podemos ver la profundidad de todo
through a completely different
a
lens.
través de un lente totalmente diferente.
Because normally everything's on the
Porque
surface.
normalmente todo está en la superficie.
We're holding everything in a past
Estamos
moment.
sosteniendo todo en un momento pasado.
We seldom even see the change of
Muy
season
raramente vemos los cambios de estación
because we're not here.
porque no estamos realmente aquí.
We can't hear deeply.
No podemos escuchar en profundidad.
We can't see
No
profoundly.
podemos ver en profundidad.
Our senses are not heightened.
Nuestros sentidos no están afinados.
We can't see
No
people.
podemos ver a las personas.
You know, it's always funny for me,
Siempre es gracioso para mí.
and I understand it,
Y lo
no?
entiendo.
Because the greatest artist
Porque los artistas más grandiosos,
is God.
el artista más grandioso es Dios.
Everything's a copy of that work,
Todo es una copia de ese trabajo,
creation.
de la creación.
And it's always
Y
changing.
siempre está cambiando,
It's always
siempre
evolving.
está
And we'll go and look at a painting
Cuando vamos y miramos una pintura,
and we'll stare at it
nos quedamos observando,
and give our intellectual interpretation.
damos nuestra interpretación intelectual.
And maybe someone's
Tal vez alguien
created something bizarre,
ha creado algo medio raro,
and we decide what it means
entonces decidimos qué significa
and what that meant about the psychology of the
y
artist.
qué eso muestra de la psicología del artista.
But if we're just present in the
Pero
moment,
si simplemente estuviéramos presentes en el momento,
we're surrounded by art.
estamos rodeados de arte,
We're surrounded by complexities.
estamos rodeados de complejidad,
We're surrounded by the artists.
estamos rodeados del artista,
But we don't see it.
pero no lo vemos.
Everything's on the
Todo
surface.
está en la superficie.
Like watching a television.
Como si estuviéramos mirando una tele.
Oh, that's a nice view.
Ah, sí, un lindo paisaje.
And then change the
Y
channel.
después cambiamos de canal.
But when you're present in the
Pero cuando
moment,
estás presente en el momento,
you can really appreciate
puedes
everything.
realmente apreciar todo.
And that's when we start to live.
Y es ahí cuando empezamos a vivir.
When we start to appreciate
Cuando empezamos a apreciar
everything we have.
todo lo que tenemos.
Because we're always chasing what we don't
Porque
have.
siempre estamos persiguiendo aquello que no tenemos.
And that's
Y
spirituality.
eso es espiritualidad.
That's
Eso es
consciousness.
conciencia.
That's present moment
Eso es
awareness.
conciencia del momento presente.
It's not something we do on
No
Sunday.
es algo que hacemos los domingos, nada más.
It's something we do every
Es
day.
algo que hacemos cada día.
We stop,
Paramos,
connect,
nos conectamos,
anchoring consciousness,
nos anclamos en la
move into
conciencia,
action,
nos ponemos en acción.
live in praise, love, and gratitude.
Viviendo en alabanza, amor y gratitud.
And that's what we're doing here.
Y eso es lo que estamos haciendo.
We're
aquí.
creating that
Estamos
space
creando ese espacio
so we can express
para
ourselves
poder expresarnos a nosotros
from that
desde
space,
ese lugar,
that unique
desde
space,
ese lugar tan único,
our unique
de
experience,
nuestra experiencia única.
not repeating someone else's
No
experience,
repitiendo la experiencia de alguien más,
because it has no
porque
value.
eso no tiene ningún valor.
The thing that has
Lo que
value
sí tiene valor
is your experience,
es tu propia
your
experiencia,
expression,
tu propia expresión,
your artistry, your mastery.
tu arte, tu maestría.
That's what has
Eso
importance.
es lo que tiene importancia.
And this is what we're doing here.
Y eso es lo que estamos haciendo.
We're finding
Encontrando
the source,
la fuente
of our
de
creation.
nuestra creación.
And it's so
Y
important.
es tan importante.
And it's the one thing,
Y es una cosa,
and the most important
y
thing,
la cosa más importante
that we've lost.
que hemos perdido.
We don't teach that.
No enseñamos eso.
What do you want to be when you grow
¿Qué
up?
quieres ser cuando
I want to be a doctor.
quiero ser doctor.
Oh, you don't want to be happy?
¿No quieres ser feliz?
Oh. But I become happy through what I do.
Claro, pero soy feliz a través de lo que hago.
And that's the big lie.
Y esa es la gran mentira.
You don't become happy through what you do.
Porque no vas a ser feliz a través de lo que haces.
You take your
Vas a
happiness
llevar tu felicidad
into what you're
en aquello
doing.
que estás haciendo.
It's all the other way around.
Todo justo al revés.
And you're lucky
Y son afortunados
because you're starting to see that.
están empezando a ver eso.
That's why you came here.
Por eso que llegaron hasta aquí.
And once you get beyond your
Y una vez
mind,
que van más allá de su mente,
your
de
intellect,
su intelecto,
your brilliant intellects, and your brilliant dramas, and your brilliant perceptions, and you get into a space of silence,
en un espacio de silencio,
then the magic will begin.
entonces la magia comenzará.
You'll start to see the lie
Van a comenzar a ver las mentiras,
of the
la
mind,
mentira de la mente,
the judgments, the
la
criticisms.
crítica.
None of it's true.
Y nada de eso es verdad.
The guilt,
La culpa,
that's the biggest one.
esa es la más grande.
Let's begin. That was my Sunday sermon.
Ese fue el sermón del domingo.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how to do that. I'm not Catholic, but
No
it
sé
looks
cómo
good,
hacer
no?
eso, no soy católica,
Something
pero
like
más o
that.
menos así sale, ¿no?
Yeah.
The sexual abuse that I suffered when I was a child followed me all my life as a constant sadness. But during this month and a half that I'm here, my 6 months, that sadness is present all day long. Why is that?
It's not even about the sexual abuse.
Tal vez ni siquiera se trata del abuso sexual,
It's that lack of trust,
sino de la falta de confianza,
that loss of
de
innocence.
esa pérdida tuya de la inocencia.
Because we trust adults.
Porque nosotros confiamos en los adultos.
We think they're going to protect
Pensamos
us.
que nos van a proteger.
And when they violate that
Y
trust,
cuando violan esa confianza,
when they take advantage of our
se
innocence
aprovechan de nuestra inocencia.
and that feeling
Y ese sentido
of doing something
de
wrong,
hacer algo mal
it just destroys.
se destruye.
And it creates separation and fear.
Separación y miedo.
And different people have different
Cada
reactions.
persona tiene reacciones diferentes.
Some are extreme.
Algunos son extremos.
Some people create multiple
Algunas
personalities
personas hasta llegan a crear personalidades múltiples
to handle the stress of the
para poder
situation.
manejar el estrés de la situación.
And the worst thing
Y
is,
lo peor es,
we feel responsible.
nos sentimos nosotros responsables.
As children feel guilty
Niños se sienten culpables
that they did something
que
wrong.
hicieron algo malo.
So not only is the fear,
Entonces, no solo es el miedo,
the lack of
la
trust,
falta de confianza,
the physical
el
rejection,
rechazo físico,
because it's not natural.
porque no es
You
natural.
don't naturally feel that when you're a child.
Naturalmente, siendo niño, no siente eso.
All of that is locked in our
Todo
bodies.
eso está grabado y encerrado en nuestro
And it's
corazón.
extremely
Y
traumatic
es extremadamente traumático
to lose all of that
el perder todo eso
in one
en
moment.
un momento.
And sometimes it's
Y
repetitive.
algunas veces es repetitivo.
So the child's living in constant fear
Así que ese niño, esa niña está viviendo en miedo constante.
and doesn't feel protected.
No se siente protegido.
All self-esteem
Autoestima
is gone.
ha desaparecido.
It's a horrific thing
Es una situación horrorosa.
because it affects on every
Que
level.
afecta a todos los niveles.
Every level.
Cada nivel.
To heal that,
Para sanar eso,
you have to go deep.
tienes que realmente ir profundo.
You have to feel
Tienes
everything
que sentir todo
until the memory
hasta que la memoria
has left the body.
haya dejado el cuerpo.
You know, sometimes initially we don't even remember the incident.
Algunas veces al principio ni siquiera recordamos el incidente.
It's like blocked.
Está como bloqueado ahí.
So yes,
Así que sí,
of course you're sad
por supuesto causa eso.
because of all those things.
Justamente por todas esas cosas.
And we all have separation,
Y todos tenemos separación.
all of us.
Todos nosotros.
But experiencing sexual abuse as a child,
El experimentar como niños abuso sexual
it's so
es
complex
demasiado complejo
because it's so damaging.
porque daña demasiado.
Mm?
To be in joy, in silence, we need to stop dancing, stop wanting to be with people, or even not hugging any more people.
You know, this is a stupid idea.
Es una idea estúpida.
To renounce.
El renunciar.
What? Renounce life.
Renunciar a la vida.
There's something wrong with creation.
Hay algo malo con la creación.
I have to close my eyes
Debo cerrar mis ojos
and go into
y
silence.
solo entrar en el silencio.
Don't look at my
No
attachments.
mirar ni mis apegos.
Don't enjoy the moment.
Disfrutar el momento.
Go into suffering,
Entrar y sufrir.
rejecting food,
Rechazar comida.
being an aesthetic.
Ser una zeta.
You know, all of this
Todo eso
is so
es
extreme.
demasiado extremo.
And life's the
La
opposite.
vida es exactamente
We're
lo
meant to be
opuesto.
dancing.
Se supone que tenemos
We're
que
meant to
estar
be
danzando.
celebrating.
Se supone que tenemos que estar celebrando.
We're meant to be giving, communicating, uniting. Or why do we have this beautiful creation?
Vamos a tener esta hermosa creación.
Is there a mistake
¿Acaso hay un error
with all the beauty?
con toda la belleza?
No, of course not. But you have to have that silence
Pero tienes que tener ese silencio
so you can really appreciate
para
everything.
poder realmente apreciar todo.
That's the most important thing.
Y esa es la cosa más importante.
Life's to be
La
enjoyed.
vida es para ser celebrada, disfrutada.
It's meant to be
Se
abundant,
supone que tiene
full
que
of
ser
love and
abundante,
joy and
y
creation
de dicha y de creación.
and flavor
Y sabores,
and
y
sounds,
sonidos,
of
por
course.
supuesto.
But you need to know who you are
Necesitas saber quién eres.
so you're not suffering.
Así no vas a estar sufriendo.
You need to be innocent.
Necesitas ser
You need to be in the
inocente.
moment.
Necesitas estar en el momento.
So how do you do that?
Y entonces, ¿cómo logras hacer eso?
By emptying
Vaciándote,
all of the image,
vaciando toda la imagen,
the ego, the toxins, the noise,
todos los ruidos.
just letting it all go.
Solo dejando ir todo
So you can be in the
para poder
silence,
estar en el
in your
silencio, en tu
consciousness,
conciencia,
enjoying everything.
disfrutando todo,
Consciousness in
siendo
action.
conciencia en acción.
And then
Y después entonces,
life begins.
la vida comienza.
Life begins.
La vida comienza. What is unity?
You know, everything's the same.
Todo es lo mismo.
Everything is love
Todo
consciousness.
es amor, conciencia,
God,
Dios,
energy,
energía,
whatever you want to call it.
el nombre que le quieras dar.
And you are that.
Tú eres eso.
There's no
No hay
separation.
separación.
And once your vibration gets to a certain
Y
level,
una vez que tu vibración llega a cierto nivel,
you perceive yourself in
te
everything.
percibes a ti mismo en todo.
I always call that the
Yo
illusion,
siempre llamo a eso la ilusión,
but I call it that
pero lo llamo así
because it's changing all the
porque es
time.
continuamente
It's not
cambiante.
something
No
fixed,
es algo fijo,
but you are that
pero
too.
tú eres eso también.
It's all real,
Todo es real,
within
dentro
and without.
y afuera.
You start by anchoring it internally,
Comienzas anclándote internamente
and then you
y
see
después ves
there's nothing but that.
que no hay nada más que eso,
There's no
que no
separation.
hay separación,
There's only
que
one.
solo hay uno.
Everything is one.
Todo es uno.
And the
Y
illusion
la ilusión
is the
es la
duality.
dualidad,
It's the playground.
es el campo de juegos,
But it's not an illusion.
pero no es una ilusión.
It's you as well.
Eres tú también.
Now we're all confused.
Ahora estamos todos bien confundidos, ¿no es cierto?
So that's why you need to expand your
Es por
consciousness
eso que tienen que expandir su conciencia
and wake up
y despertar.
and then
Y
realize,
después se dan
oh,
cuenta,
I am that.
yo soy
Oh,
eso.
there's nothing other than that.
No hay nada más que eso.
I'm you, I'm you, I'm you.
Soy
We're
tú,
that.
soy tú,
It's all that.
es todo eso.
Then the judgment falls.
Y los juicios caen. ¿Qué significa ser realmente responsable? What it means to be really responsible.
Well, that is
Eso es
what I was talking about.
justo lo que estaba hablando.
Once you start to realize
Una vez que empiezas a darte cuenta
that this is your
de
creation
esto es tu creación
and you are responsible,
y tú eres responsable
and your response is
y
responsible.
tus respuestas son responsables.
What is coming towards
Lo
you,
que viene hacia ti,
your response
tu respuesta
is your responsibility.
es tu responsabilidad.
And how you relate
¿Y
externally.
cómo te relacionas externamente?
Do you have everything segmented
¿Tienes todo segmentado
in your
en
mind?
tu mente?
Well, that's got nothing to do with me, that's got nothing to do with me, that's mine,
Eso es
boom.
mío, pum.
That's not being
Eso
responsible.
no es ser responsable.
Present moment awareness
Conciencia al momento presente
is giving in every
es
moment.
dar en cada momento.
It doesn't have a format.
No tiene formato.
It comes from the heart. It comes from a place of innocence. That's responsibility. I am that.
Yo soy eso.
How you respond and react.
¿Cómo respondes y reaccionas?
What you're giving.
Lo que estás dando,
What you're
lo que
taking.
estás tomando.
Are you taking
¿Estás tomando
or are you
o
giving?
estás dando?
Because when you give,
Porque cuando
you
das,
can receive.
puedes recibir.
There's no injustice.
No hay injusticias.
There's no justice.
No hay justicia.
There just is.
Solo es.
It's very confusing
Es muy confuso.
because you can't work it out here.
Porque uno no lo puede entender en la mente.
You have to come from here.
Tiene que venir desde el corazón.
The perfection
La perfección
comes from here.
viene del corazón. How, as individuals, we ignore what we feel. We are not in touch with our emotions. How that took us to ignore also, or is related with what they ignore in the environment.
You know, we're so locked in our little world
Estamos tan encerrados en nuestro pequeño mundo
that we don't perceive anything
que
else
no percibimos nada más
but what's important to
más que lo
us.
que es importante para nosotros.
Everything else becomes superficial.
Todo lo demás se torna superficial.
That's why we have so much greed.
Por eso tenemos tanta codicia.
We consume so much.
Consumimos tanto.
We gather so much.
Juntamos tanto.
Because internally,
Porque internamente
we live in lack.
vivimos en carencia.
We can't see the
No
abundance.
podemos ver la abundancia.
And what we can't
Y
see,
lo que no podemos ver,
we ignore.
lo ignoramos.
We ignore
Ignoramos
through
a través de
convenience.
la conveniencia.
You know, the situation with the
La
planet.
situación con el planeta.
If all humans went out
Si todos los humanos salieran
into nature,
a la naturaleza
were
fuera,
present in the
y
moment,
estuvieran presentes en el
and
mundo,
started to enjoy
comenzaran a disfrutar
the beauty of the world,
la belleza del mundo,
it would become important.
se transformaría en algo importante.
If you could actually see
Si
it,
pudieras verla,
how precious everything
ver lo
is,
preciado que es,
and how we need to protect
y
it,
cómo nosotros necesitamos protegerlo,
because we're that.
porque nosotros somos eso,
And it's
y
magnificent.
es magnífico.
But we're so locked in our little
Pero
worlds.
estamos tan encerrados.
You know, if humans really were present in the
Si
moment,
los humanos realmente estuvieran presentes en el momento,
they'd really appreciate
realmente apreciarían
what they have.
lo que tienen.
If they could see deeper,
Si pudieran ir más profundo,
go deeper,
ir más profundo,
take less
tomar menos
and give
y
more.
dar más.
But what are these
Pero
behaviors?
¿qué son estos comportamientos?
They're the actions of
Son
consciousness.
las acciones
It always
conscientes.
comes back to the same
Y siempre
point.
vuelve al mismo punto.
We abuse children
Abusamos a los niños,
because we have no consciousness.
no tenemos
We abuse the planet
abusamos al planeta,
because we have no
no
consciousness.
tenemos conciencia.
We're greedy,
Somos codiciosos,
focused on ourselves,
enfocados en nosotros mismos,
our own misery.
en nuestra propia miseria.
Why?
¿Por qué?
Because we have no
Porque no
consciousness.
tenemos conciencia.
The minute we have
En el
consciousness,
momento que tenemos
we start to become responsible
comenzamos a ser responsables.
because we can see
Porque podemos ver
how beautiful everything
qué
is.
hermoso es todo.
So instead of accumulating,
Entonces, en vez de acumular,
we start appreciating.
comenzamos a apreciar,
We start receiving.
comenzamos a recibir.
We can see
Podemos ver,
what we have
podemos ver lo que tenemos.
Because we're not trying to fill an
Porque
emptiness.
no vamos a estar tratando de llenar un vacío.
We're already full.
Ya estamos llenos.
Full of love.
Llenos de amor.
And then we're abundant.
Y después somos
And our
abundantes.
creations are
Y
abundant.
nuestra creación es abundante. Truth really exists? How to find it? Or is the truth a personal creation of each of us?
Truth is omniscience.
La verdad es omnisciencia.
Truth is silence.
La verdad es silencio.
It's love.
Es amor.
It's God in everything.
Es Dios en todo.
That's truth.
Esa es la verdad.
But you have to experience
Pero
that.
tienes que experimentar eso.
And as you're growing,
Y a medida que vas creciendo,
you have to go beyond your masks
tienes que ir más allá de tus máscaras
and speak your
y
truth.
hablar tu verdad.
But is it the ultimate
Pero
truth?
¿es esa la verdad más elevada?
No,
No.
of course it's not.
Por supuesto que no lo es.
But when you become empty, it
Pero
is.
cuando estás vacío, sí lo es.
And it's simple.
Y es simple.
Everything's simple.
Todo es muy simple.
It's not
No
complicated.
es complejo, no es complicado.
Because we're living in a classroom.
Porque estamos viviendo en la mente de aula
And everything's unfolding perfectly.
y todo está desarrollando perfecto.
But we've been taught so much rubbish
Se nos ha enseñado tanta basura.
of how we should be, what we should do, where we should go, who we should love, what religion we should have. But we have no idea of what the truth
Entonces no
is.
tenemos idea de qué es la verdad.
We only know what we've been taught.
Solo sabemos aquello que se nos enseñó.
So we have to let go of that
Entonces tenemos que dejar ir eso
to find our own truth.
para poder encontrar la propia verdad.
We have to be with ourselves.
Tenemos que estar con nosotros mismos.
And then the truth will
Y
come.
después la verdad
And
viene.
you'll know when it's
Y
true.
vas a saber cuándo es verdad.
Because it will be an
Porque va a
experience.
ser una experiencia.
It will come with an
Va a
energy.
venir con una energía.
You'll speak it
La vas a hablar.
and you will know that is the
Esa
truth.
es la verdad.
I am speaking the
Estoy
truth.
hablando la verdad.
But first you have to let go of everything that's false
Tienes que dejar ir todo aquello que es falso.
and question your ideas
Cuestionar tus ideas
and be open
y estate abierto.
to say yes
Abierto a decir que
and
sí
change.
y cambiar.
You know, we spend so much of our lives learning, accumulating information
Acumulando información
so we can function in the world.
para poder funcionar en el mundo.
And to such a point
Y a tal punto
where we blindly
que
believe
ciegamente creemos
it's all real,
que todo es real.
but then we see it's not
Pero
working.
después vemos que no está funcionando.
And that's a perfect
Y
moment.
ese es un momento perfecto.
But it's not about changing the
Pero
outside,
no se trata de cambiar al afuera,
it's about changing us.
sino que se trata de cambiarnos a nosotros.
It's about finding our own voice,
Encontrar nuestra propia voz,
our own essence,
nuestra propia esencia,
our own
nuestra
omniscience,
propia voz,
our own love.
nuestro propio amor.
That's what we're finding here.
Eso estamos encontrando aquí.
You're finding it yourselves.
Se están encontrando ustedes mismos.
You're not changing one idea for
No
another.
están cambiando una idea por otra.
You're finding it
Están
within
encontrándolo
yourselves.
dentro de sí.
And that's invaluable.
Y eso es invaluable. I feel disconnected from life. How to reconnect again?
Well, you feel disconnected from life
Te sentís desconectada de la vida
when you're disconnected from
cuando
yourself.
estás desconectada de ti
And when you're profoundly plugged in
y cuando profundamente te conectas
with the victim.
con la víctima interna.
Of course,
Claro,
everything's grey,
todo es gris,
everything's boring,
todo es aburrido,
you feel
te
disconnected,
sientes desconectada,
you don't feel
no
loved,
te sientes amada,
you don't see the point.
no ves de qué se trata esto,
What are you
qué
doing?
estás haciendo,
Why am I here?
por qué estoy aquí.
And that's such a great
Y ese
moment.
es un momento grandioso.
That is the best moment you'll ever have.
Es el mejor momento que vas a tener.
Because why?
¿Por qué?
You have two choices.
Porque tienes dos opciones.
You stop
Paras
or you change.
o cambias.
And that's a great
Ese
moment.
es un gran momento.
That disillusionment,
Esa desilusión,
that
esa
disconnection
desconexión,
is calling for
es
change.
un cambio, un llamado al cambio.
And it's a good
Es
moment,
un muy buen momento.
because that's when you start to listen.
Porque es ahí cuando empiezas de veras a escuchar.
That's when you start to say,
Es ahí cuando empiezas a
you
decir,
know what?
¿sabes qué?
I give up.
Me doy por vencido.
I know nothing.
No sé nada.
I know nothing.
No sé nada.
This isn't working.
Esto no está
I have to do something new.
Tengo que hacer algo nuevo.
And that's when you start to search.
Y es ahí cuando empiezas a buscar.
And then you start to go in.
Y empiezas a ir hacia adentro.
And then you start to find something
Y
new.
empiezas a encontrar algo nuevo.
And then you start to hear something new.
Empiezas a escuchar algo.
And you start to look in the mirror
Empiezas a mirarte al espejo.
and see someone
Y
new.
empiezas a ver a alguien nuevo.
So that's a great moment.
Es un gran momento.
It's a great moment.
Es un gran
It's not something to treat.
No es algo para tratar.
It's something
Es algo
to use
para usar
for
para
evolution,
tu evolución,
transition,
para tu transición,
change.
el cambio.
Hmm? So it's a great moment.
Así que es un fantástico momento. How to change the feeling so small with all the things I have to confront in my life, even here. That heals at some point.
You know, the reason you feel
La
small
razón por la que te sientes así chiquita
is you're
es que
comparing.
te estás comparando.
And you have to stop
Tienes que
comparing.
dejar de comparar.
All your life,
Toda tu vida
you've felt small.
te sentiste pequeña.
You see people as being better,
Veías a las personas como siendo mejores.
different images.
Imágenes diferentes.
It's just an idea in your head.
Solo una idea en tu cabeza.
And you have to stop listening to your head.
Tienes que dejar de escuchar.
And it's also a safe place
También es un lugar muy seguro
where you don't have to take responsibility.
donde no tienes que tomar responsabilidad.
It's an
Es
idea,
una idea.
and ideas are not
Las
real.
ideas no son reales.
And so you have to just let go of that
Entonces tienes que soltar eso
and start appreciating
y
yourself.
comenzar a apreciar.
If you are loving
Si
yourself,
tú te estás amando,
if you're appreciating
si te
yourself,
estás apreciando a ti,
you don't do that.
no vas a sentir-
You don't feel
no
small
vas a sentirte pequeño.
because all your attention's external.
Porque toda tu atención está en lo externo,
You feel
es
small.
que te sientes pequeño.
So appreciate yourself.
Entonces,
Love
aprecia,
yourself.
ámate,
Focus on going in.
enfócate en ir hacia
Find that internal abundance
Encuentra esa abundancia
that fills everything.
llena absolutamente.
And you won't feel
No
small.
te vas a sentir pequeño.
But stop comparing.
Deja de comparar.
The worst thing you can
Lo
do
peor que puedes hacer
is compare.
es comparar.
Because no one compares to you.
Porque en realidad nadie se puede comparar.
No one's equal to you.
Nadie es igual a ti.
You're all unique,
Cada uno es
perfect,
perfecto.
and fabulous. And you have to find that.
Tienes que encontrar eso.
Who wants to be someone else?
¿Quién quiere ser alguien más?
I don't want to be someone
Quiero
else.
ser alguien más.
Love who you are
Amen quienes son.
and polish that and be the best of that.
Mire eso y esa pregunta.
Because everything you think you want to be
Todo lo que tú piensas que quieres ser
is a fantasy.
es una fantasía,
It's an
es
illusion.
una ilusión.
Because you don't even know
Que ni siquiera sabes
who that is.
quién es eso.
You have to know who this
Tú
is.
tienes que saber quién es esto.
And when you really
Y
know,
cuando realmente lo sepas,
you'll stop
vas
comparing.
a dejar de comparar.
You won't want to be anyone
No vas a
else.
querer ser nadie más.
And everything
Y
external,
todo lo externo.
you might think it's
A
fabulous
veces piensas que es fabuloso.
because you feel fabulous.
Tú te sientes.
And I'll tell you another interesting thing.
Te voy a contar otra cosa interesante.
Once you feel
Es
fabulous
que te sientes fabuloso.
and you're loving
Y
yourself,
estás amándote.
all you see
Lo único que vas a ver
is fabulous.
es fabuloso.
All the humans,
Los humanos,
everything
todo.
you see
Vas a ver
through the eyes of
a
love.
través de los ojos del amor.
So focus on that.
Enfócate en eso.
Be small and
Sé
fabulous.
pequeña y fabulosa.
Huh? Like Shakira.
Como Shakira.
She's tiny.
Ella es chiquitita.
Or Messi.
O Messi, chaparritos. Why are we having this resistance to be with ourselves, even if we are not feeling stress?
Because of our heads.
Por nuestra cabeza.
They're crazy.
Está loca.
We've fed them for so long,
La hemos alimentado por tanto tiempo.
24 hours a day,
24
even when we're sleeping.
incluso mientras dormimos.
If we're not torturing ourselves,
Estamos autotorturando,
we're creating fantasies
creando
or
fantasías,
dreaming of something else.
soñando alguna otra cosa.
We've never learnt to be here
Nunca aprendemos a estar realmente
and to appreciate
y apreciar
the magic of the
la
moment.
magia del momento.
So we're always running.
Así que estamos siempre corriendo.
And there's always this stress bubbling up inside,
Está siempre este estrés burbujeando por dentro,
especially within this process,
especialmente en medio de este
because
proceso.
everything's moving, no?
Todo está en movimiento.
And even though it might not be apparent,
Y aunque tal vez no sea algo evidente,
you still want to run away from it
vas a querer salir corriendo
because
de
you know
eso,
it's coming.
porque sabes que está viniendo.
How many of you have been in a relationship
¿Cuántos de ustedes han estado en una relación
and the relationship's
y
great
la relación va fantástica
and you're really enjoying each
y
other
realmente disfrutarnos el uno al otro
for 6 weeks,
por 6 semanas
more or less? And then
y después
you start thinking,
empiezan a pensar
what's wrong?
que está mal,
There's something wrong.
hay algo que está mal,
Some mannerism,
alguna manera, modo de ser,
and you think,
y piensan,
oh, I feel a distance.
siento una distancia.
And you start inventing
Y empiezas a
stories.
inventar historias,
You start to destroy
empiezas a destruir
something so innocent,
algo tan inocente,
so beautiful,
tan bello,
so open.
tan abierto,
You start to find what's wrong.
y empiezas a encontrar lo que está mal.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
¿Saben de lo que les estoy hablando?
Everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Todos y cada uno saben de qué les
It's
estoy
like
hablando.
we're wired
Es como si estuviéramos preparados
for not enjoying
para
ourselves.
no disfrutarnos a nosotros mismos.
We're wired
Estamos preparados
to push love away.
para alejar el amor.
We're wired
Estamos armados
for drama.
para el drama.
Do you see that?
¿Lo ven?
Do you see that?
¿Lo ven eso?
You know, children are not like that.
Los niños no son así.
They have friends
Ellos tienen amigos
when they're really small,
cuando son muy chiquititos.
and they're for all different places, all different walks of life, and they just love each other.
La vida y se aman el uno al otro.
They just enjoy each other
Solo se disfrutan
because they're innocent.
porque son inocentes.
But we can't sustain that
Pero
innocence
nosotros no podemos sostener esa inocencia
because we've got so much
porque
need.
tenemos tanta necesidad.
We always have to be changing the outside
Tenemos que estar cambiándolo afuera.
instead of changing
En vez de
ourselves.
cambiarnos a nosotros mismos.
So now we're choosing to change
Así
ourselves.
que ahora estamos eligiendo cambiarnos a nosotros mismos.
And we'll have to stop changing the
Y
outside
vamos a tener que estar parar de cambiar el afuera.
because we'll see a perfection.
Porque vamos a poder ver una perfección.
Because we'll be projecting our own
Porque vamos a
abundance.
estar proyectando nuestra propia abundancia.
And you'll open to receive.
Se van a abrir a recibir. Sometimes my family makes fun of what I'm doing here. And in another times, they are concerned. And I don't know how to handle these situations. What do you suggest?
Well, the first thing I suggest
La primera cosa que sugiero
is when you're moving
es que
stress,
cuando estás moviendo estrés,
you don't ring your family.
no llames a tu familia.
I want to come home.
Mira cabeza.
And your family's like,
Y tu familia se queda así.
and then in 2 hours,
Y a las 2 horas
you feel great,
te sientes fantástico.
and the family's entered into
Y
panic.
la familia está en pánico.
That's the first thing I
Eso es
suggest.
lo primero que sugiero.
And you were very clearly told not to do that.
Muy claramente te recomendamos que no hicieras eso.
Another thing
Otra cosa
is, of course, they're worried.
es que por supuesto que se van a preocupar.
Of course, they'll make fun
Por supuesto se van a burlar.
because they don't understand.
Porque no lo entienden.
They don't understand
Ellos no entienden.
why you would leave your perfectly good
¿Por
life,
qué vas a abandonar tu vida perfecta? Y
go and sit in a room
ir a sentarte a una sala
for 8 hours a day
durante 8 horas al día,
with your eyes closed,
con los ojos cerrados,
screaming in a pillow,
gritando en una almohada
and going to meetings?
e yendo a meetings.
Probably they don't understand.
Posiblemente no lo vayan a entender.
Who does
¿Quién
understand?
entiende eso?
You think if people came and watched,
¿A ustedes les parece que si la gente viniera y mirara,
they'd understand?
entenderían lo que
They think it was a madhouse. Or no? You know how crazy you all look? Like, but really, if you stop and think about it, you all look crazy. Yeah. And then you all go out for a run, drinking your water, sneaking into Oxo, smoking your... You know how crazy you all look? Yeah, I didn't take a phone to the unification room. You think we don't see anything? Of course they're worried. They think you're all crazy. And it's okay. Because when you go home, you're going to just smother them with love. And they'll be very grateful that you did come here. And they'll keep making fun of you.
When you talk about love consciousness and conditional love, I feel you are talking about God. It's like that.
It's God. For me, it's God. But it's not. What is God? It's unconditional love. It's creation. It's perfection. It's an energy. It's everything. For me, God's everything. But it's not God in heaven with a beard. No, it's this. It's totality. So yes, I'm talking about God. Divinity. But you don't have to call it that. Call it what you want. I call it love consciousness. But for me, it's God.
My husband doesn't unify, and I go deeper and deeper in my unification. Do you think this can separate us?
I think it should bring you closer together. You know, you can't change other people, but you can become more love. You can give more love. You know, the interesting thing is here, often your partner changes through osmosis, no? That when you go home, you look at them and you'll see how fabulous they are. They're like they've changed. Because you change. You stop demanding them. You stop judging them. I told you the story about my mother and the sunflowers, I'm sure. It's in my books. Well, you all know that story, no? It's not really funny unless you're me. I don't know if you ever think this, but like 30 years ago, everyone's house looked the same, no? You know, you'd walk in and there'd be photos and furnitures and curtains and you know, things that my grandmother gave me, my great-grandmother made me. Like a house is full of stuff, no? And I was very aesthetic, like very obsessed with beauty. And I thought I had the best taste, without knowing if I did or not, no? But in my head, I'd see something beautiful, and that's all I wanted. It might have been a pair of jeans, but just that jean. I didn't want 20 pairs. I wanted that one. I'd see a horse and that one. Everything was precise. Because, I don't know, I was a victim of beauty. And it wasn't coming from a spoilt place
Pero no venía de un lugar malcriado.
at all. I wasn't spoilt, but I had a certain taste.
Tenía un cierto gusto.
And I remember
Y recuerdo,
my father built a house
mi papá construyó una casa
in the countryside.
en el
No,
campo.
we had a country home
Teníamos una casa en el campo,
in Australia,
en Australia.
on a beautiful property,
Una propiedad hermosa.
and they did this house all out of wood,
Esta casa de madera toda.
and it was so beautiful.
Era tan hermosa.
He built it with my brother.
La construyó con mi hermano.
It was a big house, no? It took a lot of work, and
Llevó mucho
my mother did all the
Mi
gardens.
mamá preparó los
She had
jardines.
1,000 different varieties of plants and trees and whatever. And for me,
Para mí,
because my parents had very bad
que
taste,
tenían muy mal gusto mis padres.
I was like,
Yo
wow,
pensaba, wow,
this is incredible.
esto es increíble.
And I went inside the house,
Y entro a la casa.
and it was all wood,
Y era todo madera.
and they put some furniture,
Pusieron muebles,
like green furniture,
muebles verdes.
but it was very aesthetic, no? It wasn't full of stuff.
Estaba llenísimo de cosas.
And I'd look at it,
Y miré,
and I thought, this is really lovely.
pensé esto realmente
What a beautiful house.
qué lindo.
I was only like 14, no?
Tenía 14 años.
But I was very critical in that
Era
stage.
muy crítica en esa época.
And I remember looking at, think it was lovely.
La miré pensando, qué lindo.
Haven't my parents' tastes improved a lot,
Wow,
no?
mejoró el gusto de mis padres.
A lot.
Mucho.
Wow,
Wow,
this is fabulous.
esto está fabuloso.
And the next weekend when I came,
Al fin de semana siguiente, cuando fuimos,
I opened the door,
abro la puerta.
and my mother had covered the biggest wall
Mamá había empapelado la pared más grande
with a photo of
con
sunflowers.
una foto de girasoles.
And it was horrible. So every time it sticks in my head,
Se quedó pegado en mi cabeza.
and I know it's not funny for you guys,
Para ustedes nada de gracioso tiene.
but for me, it was so
Fue
impacting.
muy impactante.
I was like, how did she do that?
¿Cómo pudo hacer eso?
How did she do that?
¿Cómo pudo hacer
And it was a really bad picture, no? It was the whole wall.
Mala, mala, en toda la pared.
Yeah, so that's the story of the sunflowers.
Esa es la historia de los
It's not enlightening,
No es muy iluminado,
it's not deep.
no es muy profundo.
In fact, it's extremely
De hecho,
superficial,
es extremadamente superficial.
but it impacted me.
Pero me impactó a mí.
Next question.
Can this practice help in the development of creativity?
You know, absolute creativity
La creatividad absoluta
comes from silence, no?
viene del silencio,
It comes from God.
viene de Dios,
It comes from within.
viene desde dentro,
And it comes quickly.
viene rápido,
And it's unique.
es única,
And it's splendid.
es espléndida.
And once you have that
Y una
connection,
vez que tienes esa conexión,
your capacity to create
capacidad de crear
becomes incredible.
se torna increíble.
Because we all have a capacity to create.
Porque todos tenemos capacidad de crear.
And it might not all be the same
Y
thing.
tal vez no sea todo la misma cosa.
It could be art, it could be music,
Arte podría ser música,
it could be the garden,
podría ser el jardín,
it could be building a house,
podría ser la construcción de una casa,
it could be anything.
podría ser cualquier cosa,
But it comes from within.
viene de dentro.
And when you're empty,
Cuando estás vacío,
that's when the magic begins.
desde ahí cuando la magia
Because you start to enjoy the moment. You start to create from the moment.
empiezas a crear desde el momento,
And you start to give from the moment.
comienzas a dar desde el momento.
And creativity
Y la creatividad
has so many
tiene
forms.
tantas formas.
It might be just playing with a child,
Puede ser jugar con un niño,
making a story.
armando un cuento,
It could be anything.
puede ser lo que sea.
But once the masks fall off
Una vez que las máscaras caen
and you're
y
open,
estás abierto,
everyone's creative.
todos son creativos.
Every human
Cada ser
has the
humano
capacity to
tiene
create
la capacidad de crear
for themselves and to give that creation.
esa creación.
So, yes, absolutely.
Absolutamente sí.
When you are not looking for the acceptance of others, or the approval of others, is that you are already giving that to yourself?
Sure.
Sí, seguro.
When you're free to be yourself,
Cuando tú eres libre de ser tú mismo.
when you're not running everything through the
Cuando no
computer,
estás pasando todo por la computadora.
worrying about what people think,
Preocupándote de lo que la gente pensará de ti.
that's because you're loving yourself.
Porque te estás amando a ti.
And you've let go of your
Y has
image,
dejado ir tu imagen.
and you're just giving.
Y simplemente estás dando.
Because the greatest judge in the world
Porque el juez más grande en el mundo
is you.
eres tú.
You're always judging
Estás
yourselves,
siempre juzgándote a ti.
not feeling good
No
enough,
sintiéndote suficientemente
on
bueno.
so many
En
levels,
tantos niveles.
worried about what other people think,
Preocupado de lo que otras personas piensan.
on so many
En
levels,
tantos niveles.
that you're not free to be
No
yourselves.
te sientes libre de ser tú mismo.
And once you have that
Y
freedom,
una vez que tienes esa libertad,
the outside stops judging you
el afuera deja de juzgarte.
because the mirror changes.
Porque cambia el espejo.
And if people do judge you,
Y si las personas te juzgan,
you just laugh.
te vas a reír,
You're free
vas a ser libre.
because you don't have an
No
expectation
vas a tener ya una expectativa
of how you should
de
be
cómo tendrías que ser
and how other people should perceive
y
you.
cómo otras personas tendrían que percibir.
And that is such a
Y
freedom.
eso es una libertad enorme,
Such a freedom.
enorme.
You don't have to be politically
No
correct.
tienes que ser políticamente correcto.
You don't have to pretend you like the
No
sunflowers.
tienes que fingir que te gustan los girasoles.
You don't have to pretend
No
anything.
tienes que fingir ni pretender ninguna cosa.
You can be real.
Puedes ser real.
You can be real.
Puedes ser real.
What a freedom, no?
Qué libertad tan grande.
And now that I'm thinking about the
Y
sunflowers,
ahora que estoy pensando en los girasoles.
I lied.
Mentira.
My mother said, "What do you think of the sunflowers?"
¿Qué te parecen los girasoles?
And I went,
Y yo fui.
"Wow."
Wow.
Even to my own mother I had to
Así
lie.
que le tuve que mentir a mi propia madre.
Because I didn't want to hurt her feelings.
Porque no quería lastimar sus sentidos.
And I spent my whole life doing that,
Y me pasé toda la vida haciendo eso.
worrying about everyone's feelings,
Preocupándome de cómo se sentía cada uno.
but not worrying about myself.
Pero no preocupándome de mí misma.
Never.
Nunca.
And look at that.
Y mira, nice.
I'm sure most people that are
Seguro
here
que la mayor parte de las personas que están aquí
are very violent with
son muy
themselves
violentos consigo mismos.
and very generous
Y muy
externally.
generosos externamente.
That's why you're here.
Por eso están acá.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Come visit our webpage for books, movies, and our wonderful retreat centers. Isha's simple yet powerful system is transforming lives around the world.